Davis isn't here.
Are we recording, Madam Clerk?
Yeah, that'd be so.
All right, very good. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the City of Parker Council meeting for the 20th of February 2024. We have 4 or 5 items of significance on the agenda tonight. But before we get started, I would like to see if we could have Pastor Davis. Is he here?
He doesn't appear to be here.
Pastor Davis? No?
Someone's still coming in. No,
Is that him?
no.
Mayor, I'm happy to do the invocation if you'd like.
Well, you don't mind?
I don't mind.
Okay, please, if you would, come to the podium. Would you please come to attention and stand?
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group, and nurture the bonds of our community. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Brother Chapel.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, please be seated. Let's see what we got
Shall I
first.
call the roll?
If you wouldn't mind, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Miss Barrow.
Here.
Mr. Chappell.
Here.
Mr. Haney. Mayor Kelly.
Here. Thank you, ma'am. First item is to approve the minutes for the City Council for the 6th of February. They're attached to your package that you have in your folders in front of you.
I make a motion to approve them as presented.
Motion's on the floor. Do we have a second? We got a first and a second. You call the roll, please?
Miss Barrow.
Yes.
Mr. Chappell.
Yes.
Mr. Haney. Mayor Kelly.
Yes, very good, Council, thank you. And are there any additions or deletions that are not currently on the agenda that we add at this time or delete at this time?
Yes, sir. We're going to delete the agenda item for Mr. Summerlin's variance and move that to the next council.
Okay, Mr. Summerlin, are you in the room? Is that correct? We're gonna move this to the next agenda? Okay.
Why?
Council member wants to know why.
We felt like we didn't give enough time for the sign placed out in front of his property, so we're gonna give it some more time, and we'll meet the criteria for the statute.
Do you know when the sign was placed? I don't know, I wasn't here, but,
I don't know. I just don't think there was quite enough time. So we
okay.
need a little
What's the
more.
required amount of time?
I believe it's 10 days.
10 days?
Mr. Sloan, 10 days?
That sounds right, but I don't know off the top of my head, Mayor. I'd have to look.
So, Mr. Sumlin, you're all right with a delay of 10 days, or it'll be 14 days till it's on the next agenda?
You can delay it for 3 months. I'm in no rush.
Okay. So we'll delay it for 14 days, Councilman, member, if you want to. All right, so that's item,
I believe it was 2.
was it item 2?
I believe it was.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Item number
Alright.
2, so read it.
Council, any other items out of 1, 3, 4, and 5 that we want to add or delete to?
I believe there's something that needs to be added to the agenda that we were here last Tuesday discussing Nicholas Lane.
Where from?
Nicholas Lane,
Okay,
Well, that's
Not to add it,
not
but
on
that
the
you could
agenda.
just come and speak when we have items.
When we have
not
items-
otherwise on the agenda, yes.
as soon as we get the items from the audience, you're welcome to come and speak about that, all right? Or whatever it is.
That's next.
Okay, is there anything else to add or delete? Okay, at this time, if there's any items from the audience that are currently not on the agenda, please come forward, state your name and address for the record, tell me what it is you need to know or have a question about. Good afternoon.
hey, I'm Denise, Troy and Lindsay.
We live on Nicholas Lane, and we want to see about getting it city maintained. And we came last week, and we were told the next step would be come this week to the meeting.
You came to the council last
They
week?
came to the
Planning
plan.
Oh, you came to the planning council. Okay, I wasn't there, so don't know.
Okay.
What is your question?
We want to see about getting Nicholas Lane city maintained because it's not, right now, we weren't aware when we purchased our homes.
And what was it maintained?
The road, our road is not city maintained at all. We have a,
So backstory, there used to be an HOA dissolved, prior to either of us living there.
Right.
And then the street, so plumbing and everything, like that was never handed back over to the city.
Right.
So we had actually an incident where basically everything was backed, to the manhole.
Yeah.
And that's when we found out that.
What number did you buy out of curiosity?
What was that?
What number is your unit?
5307, I think that's number 15 is the lot number. Might be wrong on that.
Okay.
and I'm 5303.
And I'm 5306.
So you're all in a row in the block of
Correct.
4.
Correct.
Okay. And then and the street address again was
So for mine was 5307 Nicholas Lane.
Nicholas. Okay. Mr. Sumlin, can you tell me if that's private or city? Okay. So if it's private, when you bought it, the due diligence would have been that the seller would have told you that you own whatever it is that you bought. The city doesn't own it. So was there a homeowners association?
Not when we purchased.
Is there one now?
No.
It's defunct probably, right?
Correct.
I hate those. Mr. Sloan, tell me give me some good legal advice.
Mr. Summerlin and I need to do some research on that. I did not want to do it until the council
Okay.
authorized it. So if the council wants me to look into it, then I'll be glad to do it. But I have not yet.
Okay, hold on.
Ended here.
What exactly is it you wanting done?
So the big issue is the plumbing. The
In your home?
from the city side.
Okay.
So that was the big issue that came up.
Coming to the meter is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay.
So the big issue that came up is that I suppose there's a Y line in between houses.
Wow.
That's where it all backed up. And
Right.
So it had to get jetted out from.
Mhm.
And so that's what we.
How many meters do you have?
On the street?
Like, is there one per house? Do you share a meter with other people?
No.
There should be one per house.
So it can't be gated then. You have to have a meter for each line going to the house. Now, at some point prior to that, it may be split or whatever. So it made it. What was stuck in the line?
It was sewage.
Oh, it was sewage.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, so it's
way
not a
out
water
nothing.
line; it's a sewer line.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Correct, yeah. Way out nothing.
And he got that resolved. I think our main issue is we're just scared if something does go wrong.
Right.
You know,
Uh huh.
that each homeowner will have to come together and try to.
How many houses are there? That's almost a new street.
Yeah, 2006 it was developed.
Yeah,
7.
7.
2007.
And
At some point tomorrow morning around 10 o'clock, Mr. Sumner and I will be on your street to look and see what it is you're talking about. Mr. Summerlin will speak to the city's attorney to find out where we stand legally. Once it leaves that meter, it's not our property anymore, and it goes to your home. And the same in the opposing direction, Mr. Summerlin. If there's anything other than that at this time,
But basically what they're talking about, Mary, is the street and the water lines going to their meter and the sewer lines going down their street are all private.
okay.
That's what they're asking for, is they want to turn that over to the city.
Oh, we're going to have to definitely talk about that with a lawyer.
Is that off of 11th Street?
Yes.
And
See,
it's just a little cul-de-sac.
When, yeah, but when we take a line and we put one into service or we maintenance one, it's inspected by the city before we take possession of it. When you took possession or your predecessors took possession, that wasn't inspected by us. So I can't send him out there and him discover $500,000 repair, just throwing a number out there, and expect the taxpayers to pay for that because it's private property. So what we'll have to do is tomorrow morning at about 10 o'clock, I'll come to your property. If you could contact the city clerk with a phone number and contact information, you can email it to the city's mailing address. We'll go take a look. I'll have the public works director talk with the attorney to find out where we stand legally, and then we'll have to have a sit down and have a conversation what we're going to do. Do you have water and sewer at this time?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
everything's fine.
Yeah.
right?
You're just worried for the future.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The last incident we had was close to 2 years ago now.
Okay.
But the concern for it happening again.
When it
was-
happened before, what happened? The sewer backed up?
So yeah, so so it was what's John's address? 306?
When that happened, did they tell you why it happened? Was it because of the watershed? Was there an obstruction in the line? Do you have any idea why?
There was an obstruction in the sewage line. So, and the way they explained to me is that because my house and my neighbor's house kind of like come together at one point.
Right.
Basically, all of our sewage came together.
Okay.
Caused an obstruction, and then both of our house, like our toilets
Backed
were
up.
flowing, everything was going back to our bathtubs, things, everything. So.
I hate that, man.
Well,
So at that time, do you remember if it was a flooded situation? Were we flooding at that time?
No,
We were not. It just happened.
it was dry. Yeah.
Okay. Let me get a few hours to get my head around the resolution for this, and I'll make contact with you tomorrow sometime. And Mr. Sumner will talk with the city's attorney, and we will find a solution for your problem, or not. I'll do my best I can to figure it out.
Yes, sir.
Troy,
Alright.
can you give me your last name?
Yes, David Allen, DAVIDOW. I sent you an email last week with all our
David
information.
Okay.
I can follow up with our phone numbers as well.
That would
Very
be
good.
great. If you do that first thing or even this evening, that'd be
Very good. And we'll get with it in the morning.
Awesome.
Thank
so
you.
much.
You're welcome. Okay, we're back to item 1.
Sorry.
Do we have more? Oh, we have another.
Yep. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought we didn't have anybody.
Pat Fosick, 1344 Stratford, sorry. Mayor Kelly, just one thing, because they did bring this up at the planning meeting on Nicholas Lane. There's an Alexander Lane over there too that's in the same situation. I would anticipate that if we, where'd they go? Did they leave? If the city does look at that we're gonna be hearing from Alexander, so may I suggest we sort of look at both at the same time? I mean, if we're gonna take one, take the other, just consider that, that's all I'm asking, because there are 2 parcels, or 2 lanes there that are private. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Just a question for you, Mr. Kelly. We had a phone conversation about 2 weeks ago that regarded to the sound with
Name and address.
Name and address
Gregory
first.
Parker, 16 Wood Avenue.
Yep.
I have it, Mr. Parker.
We spoke about the sound test regarding local spin 6232.
Yeah, are you the guy I spoke to on the phone?
Yes, sir.
Hey, how you doing?
Yes, sir. Good,
Now I
how
can
are
put
you?
a name with a face in a
Yes,
conversation.
sir. And you stated that the city could not pay for such an expensive test.
Correct.
I did get an email about a test of being $6,000. You also stated that if we could come to an agreement where I pay for half as a homeowner and send it to Parker, and the owner of Local Spin pays for half.
Did you talk to him about it?
And no, sir, you told me that you were going to speak with him.
Okay, yeah, well, I have some documentation on my desk. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, sir. That would be a way to go, or that if the city is not, the code that the city wrote is not upheld by the city, that I need to go outside the city and find a lawyer to uphold.
If I
the city
can't
code.
satisfy you, sir, that's what you gotta do.
Um,
But you know what we talked about, be accurate now.
yes, sir.
You said that we were gonna try to figure this out and find somebody that would inspect it for a lot less than $15,000 is actually what they said.
Yes, sir.
The people that I had contacted, or I had my staff contact, said it would be $15,000 to test the sound coming from the laundry dry cleaners that affected your property.
Right, and that's from the.
Not 6.
Right, well, there's a closer company in Atlanta.
Okay,
And I spoke with him about finding someone that could do it closer, and he stated that he was unaware of how difficult it was finding work.
that's correct. He told our
So,
police
sir.
chief that.
Yes. So I guess my main question is, you agree that I'm responsible for any improvements or anything that needs to go on as far as the city code wise goes with them not upholding code.
So, if I'm not mistaken, you gave me weighted sound A and weighted sound C was what we couldn't challenge, right? We didn't have a way to measure that, is that correct?
Yes, sir. The
Okay.
city states-
So, and did we measure weighted sound B, which we did, right? The police
Yeah.
department came around with a machine, a decibel machine?
Yeah, you did a weighted A sound test.
Right, because he didn't have an A or a C machine.
Yes, sir. So it's just a regular.
So I have tasked the police chief with the responsibility, the minute I stop talking to you,
Yes, sir.
to get somebody to give us a weighted sound A or a weighted sound B, or at least a price to get it done. As of this minute in time, the closest he's been able to tell me is $15,000 to get it tested. Now, how am I supposed to get the weight of the sound tested for $15,000? And I call these people and they come down and I pay them $15,000 and they pass the test. How do I get my money back? That's the only question I have.
I'm unaware of how they will pass if they're failing it by.
Yeah, but me and you don't have a say in it. It's the machine and the operator that has to make the say.
Well, it's within the city code that they will do these tests if this problem arises. So it's not really me it's me trying to enforce the code that the city wrote.
Right.
However, the price tag shouldn't be on the citizen if the city wrote the code themselves.
Explain to me, I know you know already, the difference between may and will. Do you remember we talked about it?
Yes, sir.
It doesn't say we will, it says we may.
The may is in reference to sending a letter to the establishment.
Okay.
For you to go onto the property and look and see if there's a problem or to shut them down. You
So
may
I did go on, I didn't, but the code officer did go on the property with the device that measures the sound.
Yes, sir.
And he says to me in a formal letter that the sound is compliant with weighted sound B. He said it's compliant. He says that trucks traveling on Tyndall Parkway make more noise than the dryers at the laundromat.
But they're not staying within residential code.
I don't have any way to test it without hiring somebody, and I don't have the money to hire somebody. That's what I'm saying. If I stick my neck out and I hire a guy for weighted sound A and weighted sound B, let me say this. Let's say we ask the property owner and he's willing to do that. I'm not saying that he is.
Right.
And he passes. How does he get his money back?
The operation should have been done before he opened his facility. That's the thing.
Well, I don't know of anybody that ever heard of weighted sound A or weighted sound C prior to that laundromat ever being built. We only went with the standard noise machine that we had. I'd never heard of weighted sound C until you called me.
Well, I mean, I understand that, but it's
Because-
within the city code, so that's the reason I brought it up. I mean,
So
that's-
when you call me,
that's the scientific version of stating
Right.
the sound. You know, the C is the highest pitch of what is going on, and the A is a
okay.
wave pattern of the sound.
Detective Perdue, can you tell me if Chief Hutto is in the lobby?
No, sir, he's not.
I can't give you an answer
Right.
because he's the one that. Would you like me to have Chief Hutto come around and explain it to you?
That's
Because I can't. He tells me, and I did not know you were going to ask me this question. I don't know what the answer was other than it was $15,000 is what they said it would be to get weighted sound A and B and C.
Well, I was told that was the equipment. That's what Hutto told me. Is that
Just
was
the
for-
equipment?
That was just the equipment. That wasn't the test. That was just the equipment. So,
I
you know, the
can't
test-
spend that. So how much was the whole deal?
Well, I asked someone in Atlanta named Logan with he's an engineering manager. I don't have the company name.
Okay, but just get to
Conversation,
the
but
meat of it is
he
it was
told me
20.
It was $6,000 for a sound test that would be needed.
And he would
An
conduct the
A-weighted
test
sound
and
test.
provide the equipment.
That's the equipment, sound. That's all of it done. $6,000.
Okay.
24-hour A-weighted sound test. As
Okay.
per the code.
Detective Perdue, do you have any idea when Chief Hutto will be back?
No, sir, I
Okay. As soon as Chief Hutto is back to work, I'll ask him. I have his notes on my desk because I was shocked by the amount of money. And I'll call you, like I told you when I talked to you on the phone. I have nothing to report because I have no way of getting it tested right now.
Right.
So the guy in Atlanta is willing to come and test it, right?
That's what he says.
Okay.
$6,000.
So the only question I have is if they pass the test. Of course, if they don't pass it, then that's moot point because it's over. But if they pass it, how do I get my money back?
The city goes after them for putting a facility there that was not.
Yeah, but if it
currently
passes,
existed.
if it passes,
If it passes, then again, I don't.
You don't
see
know,
how
right?
it
'Cause I don't
will-
know.
I'm not seeing how it will pass because
Uh-huh.
it has to pass commercial and residential because we're a conjoining property.
right?
Or an adjacent property. I'm residential property, so
Right.
it has to stay within 50 to 55 decibels.
Now, I understand that you also have a complaint against the street vendor that's out there in front of the
Yes.
barber shop.
Yes, sir.
What is the complaint on them?
The vendor is not supposed, per Parker code, it is not supposed to be there after 7 p.m. each day.
Supposed to
and
pack
full-
out.
Right.
Right.
It's supposed to leave every day.
Yeah,
Per Bay County code, it's supposed to leave, it can't stay in the same area for longer than 7 days, and it cannot be at a repeating area for within 30 days.
okay. That I can do something about.
Yes, sir.
All right. And how long has that been there?
I know it's been there a month.
Okay. So first things first, I'll deal with that first thing in the morning.
Yes, sir.
And when I see Chief Hutto, I'll ask him to give me a briefing on where he has established the ground lines for this test because I don't understand it. And I certainly don't have the machinery to conduct the survey.
Yes, sir.
So would that be okay to have a couple of days to be able to find out that answer?
Yes, sir.
He's been out he's had some emergencies to deal with, so
Yes, sir.
I will get you an answer as soon as I can.
There's also a complaint on the book about water damage to our property. They were supposed to put in a swale. This is back when Mr. Peterson, as a code enforcer, was here.
Okay.
They did not put in a swale.
And who was supposed to put that in?
The owners of local spin.
Okay. So it's
It's a
let me
compound.
handle one thing at a time,
Yes,
okay?
sir.
Because you're overloading me with jobs to do, and we don't have enough people to do it all.
Absolutely.
So let's get the sound issue taken care of first.
Yes, sir.
And will you accept the findings of the police chief?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As soon as I see him, we'll come to your house, or he'll come to your house and show you what he showed me. Then tomorrow, I will go out with Mr. Summel and I'll deal with the vendor.
All right.
And then after that, we'll look at the flooding issue.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I appreciate you, man. Anybody else before we start with our agenda? Okay, very good. Regular agenda item, public hearing and request for the first reading of ordinance 2024-420. And it's a billboard moratorium. I believe that's you, Mr. Sloan?
Yes, sir. If you recall, at the last meeting, the council expressed that it wanted to impose a moratorium pending review of the off-premises sign provisions of the land development regulations. And this ordinance would implement that moratorium effective February 6th, which was the date of the last meeting, and it would run for a period of 180 days, during which time you're instructing staff and your planning committee to take a look at the current version of the off-premise signs and come back with a recommendation to the council as to recommending any changes, if necessary, to those provisions.
Okay. Also along with that, ladies and gentlemen, I received a letter this week from a citizen outlining 12 signs that were damaged in a hurricane probably 6 years ago, 5.5 years ago. And the code officer is currently becoming a certified code officer. And as soon as he gets back, I will submit that letter to him for documentation of those signs that are not compliant. We will need to I guess look at other cities' ordinances and what they use for billboards.
Yes, sir.
Looking at them, there are some that are pretty large on the parkway and probably may have slipped through the cracks, or they may have been there and then been damaged in the storm and then have been replaced. But
Well, if you remember, Mayor, when you all did the revision to the land development regulations back November the 1st of 22, you did implement some specific requirements relative to off-premise signs
yeah,
that had to do with lateral separation between signs, particularly on Tyndall Parkway.
yeah,
But the Planning Commission has received input, and they've talked about that they may want to consider going beyond that. And
Right.
that's what prompted the request to the council.
that'd probably be something for the planning council.
Yes, sir.
There is one concern I have. There is a sign on the right side of Tyndall Parkway. There's an information sign for Tyndall Air Force Base. I do not think we should make them take that sign down, whatever we do. I think that would be detrimental to the relationship with the United States Air Force and our city.
This would be prospective, Mayor.
Prospective.
Yes, sir.
Okay, sounds great. So, well, some of them probably need to go that are there.
Do you need a motion to read?
A motion to have a first reading. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Okay,
we need a
I'll make
motion.
that motion.
We have a motion to read. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Take the roll, please.
Miss Barrow?
Yes.
Mr. Chappell?
Yes.
Mr. Haney?
Yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2024-420, an ordinance of the city of Parker determining the potential need for changes of the city's ordinances, including its land development regulations, directing staff to actively pursue proposed changes, suspending and temporarily prohibiting the consideration or granting of permits for installation or construction of off-premises signs within the city, providing for an effective date and duration. So at the next council meeting, Mayor, we'd have a second reading.
And then vote on it. Okay, that'll be in 14 days from today, Madam Clerk. Okay, item 3 is the selection of the new city council member.
I'd like to say something first before.
Yes, ma'am.
So everyone knows that it's the job of the city council to appoint an empty seat. That's by the city charter of the city of Parker. This is an appointment, it's not an election. Election's for the voters of Parker, and this is for the city council. And as a matter of fact, we didn't have to even pick any of the people that put their application in. But to let you know, I'm gonna give you the list of the people that did put their name in, which was John Haney, which he got put in his seat, Joe Hoffbauer, Kyle Merritt, Jim Robichaud, Pat Busick, and Caitlin Barrett. And just so everybody knows, we didn't say that nobody didn't know who it was, but it's our job to do it. And having said that, I make a motion that we put Caitlin Barrett in this seat for the next 3 years, or 1 year and 56 days.
Well, for the unexpired term,
Yeah. For 1 year to 56 days.
however long that is. I hope you counted it up right.
I did.
We have a motion on the floor, council.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any conversation?
You did say Mrs. Barnett, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Call a roll, please.
Barrett.
Barrett.
Call a roll, please, Madam Clerk.
Miss Barrow?
Yes.
Mr. Chappell?
Yes.
Mr. Haney?
I'm really green here. I really respect Ms. Barrow's recommendation by any means, so I would say yes.
Mayor Kelly?
Yes. Thank you, council.
Passes.
We'll take a small break before the next item, and Mr. Sloan will swear in the new council member, and they'll also swear in, he already swore in Mr. Haney in his office before the last council meeting, but Mr. Haney's father, longtime resident of Parker, has asked that he could get a photograph with his son while he's being sworn in as a city council member.
Mayor, if I might suggest, we could do that while the break, and then, once we come back from the break, then we could go back in session and I could swear in, Ms. Barrett.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, by all of us, yeah.
Okay.
So we're gonna take a break. Mr. Haney, is there a Mr. Haney in the house? Where would you like to stand, sir? I would suggest I'll move out the way and you stand here with your son and we'll get your photograph made in front of the seal of the state of Florida.
Take a picture of his old ass.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but that's what he asked me for, in case he won't be here when you. Good for him, brother.
I'm gonna keep screaming.
I think she is okay because she goes right.
Don't turn it off, leave
I'm
it.
just gonna let it go.
How are you, sir? All right.
You got dressed up, didn't you? Found the shirt?
Dirty clothes. So this is just a photo op and we're not doing it again. We've already done it for those in the audience. Mr. Haney came down and I swore him in, on December the 19th at my office, so, he was all set.
Who has a camera?
for that.
Juliet.
So,
Oh, good. Kim's
anyhow,
out.
if you put your left hand, there you go. All right, so now we have. All right, there you go. Congratulations.
Gotta sit back down.
All right, and then,
You ready?
Mayor, are we back in session?
We are back in session.
All right, so, if I could have Ms. Barrett.
Congratulations, man. It means a lot to him.
He didn't have to say it again, but you get to say all the words. So if you wanna come around on this side, left hand on Bible. Right hand up.
Yeah, I'll text it to you, but I'll send it to her too.
You'll repeat after me. I, Caitlin Elaine Marie Barrett,
I, Caitlin Elaine Marie Barrett,
a citizen of the state of Florida
a citizen of the state of Florida
and of the United States of America,
and of the United States of America,
and being employed by
and being employed by
or an officer of
or an officer of
the city of Parker,
the city of Parker,
and a recipient
and a recipient
of public funds
of public funds
as such employee or officer,
as such employee or officer,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support,
that I will support,
protect,
protect,
and defend the Constitution
and defend the Constitution
and government of the United States
and government of the United States
and of the state of Florida,
and of the state of Florida,
and that I am duly qualified
and that I am duly qualified
to hold office
to hold office
under the Constitution
under the Constitution
of the state,
of the state,
and that I will well
and that I will well
and faithfully perform
and faithfully perform
the duties of
the duties of
city council person
city councilperson
for the city of Parker, Florida,
for the city of Parker, Florida,
on which I am about to enter,
on which I am about to enter,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. So I want her to.
Yes, yes, you may join.
Come on up.
Take your seat, man.
And, Jules, nameplate tomorrow.
Item 4 is Coastal Acquisitions LLC City Council. These folks have been waiting for quite some time. City Council, you have all the documentation from Anchor Engineering in your packages. I open the floor.
No, it was a discussion, Mayor. We didn't actually provide any, it's just a discussion.
Okay.
Was my understanding, not
Yeah.
any documents, just a discussion.
I thought the council had received that documentation over the last 4 or 5
Well,
months.
it's been put up on the website and,
Mayor, this came up at the planning commission meeting, and I think that, there were some things that came up that perhaps, upon reflection, maybe the two council members that were there may want to weigh in on some of the items that came up. So this would not be actually considering the development permit, which is a quasi-judicial proceeding, but this would be more of a policy discussion of things that came out of that meeting last week.
Well, I'm concerned, well, with the LDRs, that the footage in the building come up. And the issue I have is a planning commissioner wrote that, redid it for us, and they already had that amount of the footage from the year before, from last year this time. And it's kind of odd to me that it came up whenever I didn't go back and check it. I wish I had, because I didn't think about it. That whenever it was written up that the footage is what it was, I want to know where the amount of the footage came from to write that in that LDR.
What I think Ms. Barrow is talking about is one of the discussion items has to do with the square footage of what constitutes light manufacturing. In the recent amendment in the LDR that you all enacted last month, the changes, one of the changes that were made was that the square footage of light manufacturing was capped at 22,500 square feet. And so Ms. Barrow is talking about that cap that was in the amendment to the LDR.
What I'm saying is that the planning commission already had all that information, and where did that number come from to put that number in there to be less than what had already been looked at? And for future people that would want to have a building that size or bigger, I want to know where the figure would come from.
Mr. Rager, can you spread any light on that for us?
Yes, sir. Is Mr. Robichov here today? Okay. Mr. Robichov was tasked with developing the concept of light manufacturing. The whole concept came about because we found an error in the LDRs, and that no manufacturing was allowed in the city of Parker. So we decided that we must change that particular LDR. NAICS identifies manufacturing as anytime you change anything, morph it, build something different from what you've got. So we had to change the term. The term is now called light manufacturing. And light manufacturing, we could take that new term and we could ultimately create what we ultimately saw as light manufacturing. Light manufacturing was supposed to be void of the things that most people see as smokestacks and heavy gravel trucks and things of that nature. More things like what you might see in a seaside village, like glass blowing or something of maybe sail making with CV Sales. For example, that business couldn't exist today in Parker except for this new LDR that we incorporated. When Mr. Robichov looked at the size of the building, it was sort of just his intuition that led him to the 22,500 square feet. It's important to note that we were not looking at any business which was already before planning or the council and trying to shoehorn it into that. It was more along the concept of no manufacturing existed at the time, and it was our goal in order to create what could be accepted in a seaside village and progress the city. So the good news is this. Mr. Santora's business, in my opinion, with the exception of the actual aspect of manufacturing, meets all of the requirements for light manufacturing. There are things associated with temperatures and pressures. There are things associated with noise, odor, a number of other things. Not a single one of those things is breached. There are three things that the council would have to grant for a variance in order for this to go through. There's ingress and egress, because one of the things that the citizens spoke of were, if you're going to have light manufacturing and you've got trucks that deliver, you really want those trucks to be able to come in off the main road. In this particular case, they would have to jog about a block down, the city street in order to, get their trucks in and deliver their goods. Second one would be the size of the building. Within light manufacturing, Mr. Robichaud authored in 22,500. I think Mr. Santor's building is 28,800.
Where did the 22.5 come from?
It's based on it's an intuitive number that he came up with. There's nothing scientific about it. And in fact, even though I'm sure he searched for reasoning behind it, we asked him that very question, and he believed that it was purely based on what his envision of size was. And then the last thing was parking. We had a discussion over parking. We actually even changed it for this, not for this particular business, but for those businesses that do not have a retail component. So we reduced it from based on square footage of the building, also to a lower number for square footage for that business which did not have, for example, any retail component. So Ms. Barrows, absolutely respect your question, and I don't want to lie to you. There's no scientific basis based on that figure. The good news is, and as you all know, the Authority and Powers Act within Section 4.1, Article 4, allow you to grant that variance. There are very specific language that we did write into the LDRs. It's item 5 and Article 4, which specifically gives the council members the right to go ahead in unique circumstances to go ahead and grant that variance.
Okay, but Mr. Rager, what I think Ms. Barrow is talking about is a conceptual, not related to this one development permit application, but a conceptual, what should the limit be? And your explanation of how the 22.5 came about may help Ms. Barrow to figure out, is that really the right number? If that's not the number that the council really thinks is the right number, then the way to fix that number, independent of any development applications, would be to simply do an amendment to the LDR.
Why not just 30,000 square feet and be done with it?
You know what? We could, and in fact,
because that's conceptual. I just dreamt it up.
That's exactly right. And the criticism is absolutely due on our part. We saw the number. We thought, okay, 22,500 square foot building, still a pretty good sized building, large. It doesn't have to fit this gentleman's building, but I think the belief structure was that if we set it somewhere in terms of a large building, it still meets our perception of what light manufacturing might be, and then the council would have final say in terms of allowing for a variance, which you absolutely have the power to do.
When the company that sells lumber in Parker came to Parker to ask to build that, a lot of people, or a few people, said, we don't want that. And now it's one of the nicest buildings in the city.
Absolutely agree.
When they came to us and said they wanted to put a storage facility on the other side of the road, some of the same people said, shouldn't do it, because, and I look at it, it's one of the nicest buildings in the city. And when we decided we were going to build a fishing pier, some people come to us and said we shouldn't do it because we can't afford the maintenance. But we did, and we have, and we are. So those of you that pay attention to taxes, if you don't have retail establishments in your city or your village or whatever it is you want to call it, the tax falls on the people, right? And dissuading business from coming to Parker on the business highway is in my mind foolish, because we're not opening the doors for revenue to come to the city of Parker. We've been putting this off for whatever reason for months.
And I think it's important to note that many citizens that live down that corridor have that same exact opinion as you.
They do.
It's a business area. As a matter of fact, we had a gentleman who I think is in the audience today, this gentleman right here, that said, you know what, it's amazing that this gentleman has gone through this for over a year.
We've put him through a devil.
He's doing everything that he wants to do in order to be a good Parker
Paid $1
citizen.
million for that piece of land, and he didn't mess around. He paid it with a check.
We know that The city also has a 6-inch water main in there. He's gonna pay for an 8-inch water main.
8-inch for
That
fire
saves the
protection.
taxpayer a whole bunch of money.
Yep.
We also know that when you've got separation between things like MUs and commercial and residence areas, you have to have barriers. Those barriers have to be 5 feet. They consist of fencing, foliage. By the way, the guy who stood up a little earlier and was talking about sound, you know, there's a great way to knock down some sound, just as an option for you to put. If it's a laundromat and the sound is going, I know I'm getting off the course here, but
Yeah.
that's one of the benefits, fencing and foliage. But Mr. Santora has indicated that he's gonna do that, and that's also in the CRA, sub-area 1. And sub-area 1 specifically says things like, you will put in fantail driveways, you will put in, you know, things like brick, you know, for your sidewalks, or pavers, something of that nature.
And he said, I was in one meeting and I heard him say he'd do that.
You'll have downward lighting, you'll have foliage, you'll have barriers. The gentleman is going out of his way in order to be
Right.
a great citizen in Parker. That's why, as a planning person, I supported it, because just like you said, there are a lot of people that were against the lumber company. There are a lot of people
Yep.
that were getting moved in storage.
Yep.
But what's different is those people took their brand seriously. They didn't want to be an eyesore in the city,
Yep.
and now look at them.
Well,
That
I think
moving
that the
storage
next
is
thing to
beautiful.
complain about be the brand new hotel that's going on the other side of the storage units.
Right.
When we get to that. And it seems like a constant uphill fight to be able to move forward in our city with, this guy's been trying for a year
Right.
to build his building. He's done everything that I've seen that he's done.
Well, we've even gone to another step that maybe you guys aren't aware of. He owns other businesses in other states, and we've seen the pictures of what those are. He runs a good business. He runs a real clean business. Those businesses look nice. Now, he's also got one over in Millville, but it was going to be kind of a temporary or Springfield. That was going to be a temporary operation for him.
Yeah.
But the other businesses that he's serious about and he runs, they're nice businesses. We did our due diligence.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I do not have a great scientific empirical data, and quite frankly, I'm not one to go ahead and, you know, push it off on something, but when the number came up, 22,500, I think we were all thinking light manufacturing. That's probably going to be adequate. It just doesn't fit this particular one. I went along with it because I know you have Article 4 to rest on as a council member, and you absolutely have the right, as we wrote in the LDRs and as exists in the comprehensive plan, to go ahead and grant that variance. So because of that, I went along with it.
Mr. Chappell, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, if it's not a whole lot of problem, I would say, let's raise it up to
30,000?
3,000.
And,
30.
that would
30,000.
cover his plans, and, it wouldn't have to come back to the council for
Right.
approval.
The engineer
Well,
tells me it's already been approved. She tells
Mayor.
me that it's correct.
Mayor, at this point, though, your planning commission has not given a final recommendation to, or denial to the applicant. What I thought Ms. Barrow was talking about was doing an amendment to the LDR to change the 22.5 to 30,000 since that seems to be the consensus of the council.
Is it? I haven't heard anybody say that.
Mr. Chapel just suggested.
Mr. Chappell said it,
Okay.
and Ms. Barrow said it.
Okay.
I hadn't heard Mr. Haney say anything.
Anything you'd like to add?
To this,
Yeah, to what we're talking about.
you brought a good point up the other day. I mean, what if a guy comes up to your house and wants to put rain gutters up?
Right.
He's manufacturing in the
And he's
street.
in your driveway.
Right. That's light manufacturing.
Yep.
But I guess the idea is the space of what he's allowed to do. I'm still on the fence on it, really, because there's some people in the area that don't really want to see the trucks in and out and so on and so forth. But
One truck a week. We tested.
One truck a week.
Yes, sir. One truck a week.
That's a fact.
And on top of that, he's building the building as large as he is, so
Right.
that no noise gets beyond the building.
Nothing in the yard, nothing stands outside.
Will be loaded and unloaded in the building.
Inside the building, yep.
But meanwhile, there's 7 different companies that pick up garbage in the city?
Yes,
That's,
sir.
that's heavy traffic every day.
You know, deliver shingles to neighborhoods,
Absolutely.
thousands of pounds of shingles.
I think there, and John, thanks for that memory, because I'm glad you brought it back. The whole concept there was this gentleman doesn't paint, doesn't use any toxic material. He brings in painted sheet metal and he puts it through a roll press. No noise, and there's no toxic waste. There's nothing that the city would have to deal with. That's why we granted it, or why we went ahead and along with it, as possibly being under the cover of a light manufacturing, because the 5 criteria that has to make it as light manufacturing are all met. But the 3 variances, and there are 3, so, one again, egress and ingress, you know, not off of the, is it West Street?
Yeah,
off of
West Street, by the cemetery.
You would have to, you know, drive about a block down the street, but the building, you know, the trucks would be loaded and unloaded directly in the building. The second piece of that would be parking. When you do not have a retail component, and he will have a retail component, but the building is so large because of what he does, even the parking is gonna probably have to rely on a variance, because I think he wants to put in 25 spots, because he's only got a half dozen a dozen employees, but he's not gonna have the retail component, which would, if you do the math on that, 28,000 times 4, they have to have 112, you know, different parking spaces. This city is
Ludicrous.
much too concerned with, you know, p-values and r-values and flood values, and at the end of the day, if you force somebody to put that much concrete or asphalt in, you've created a whole nother problem. So
I
he
will
doesn't
tell you
need-
something that you may or may not know. He has agreed to put in an 8-inch water supply line link from East Highway 98 through West Street, down 2nd Street to the back of the sprinkler system in that building.
Yes, sir.
And the pastor across the street's about to put his 8-inch supply line in. The city of Parker would then loop them 2 lines together, and that would give us a looped fire protection, increasing the overall pressure of all of the lines being belayed from that line that's been buried. So from a fire protection standpoint, it's certainly a win-win. Now that building will probably never burn because it's solid steel.
Yes, sir.
But that church could conceivably burn, and we would then have ample water with a looped water system to be able to man those sprinklers and put that out.
Yes, sir. And I think, you know, being in a CRA, he has other requirements, and he's gonna meet them. They are that, you know, the parking is gonna be shielded from, you know, the residences.
Right, he agreed to do that.
He agreed to do all of that. Downward lighting, you know, barriers between, you know, the residential area and his business.
Yep.
He's gonna beautify that area, and it's gonna be another move at storage.
Yep,
guarantee it.
I'm with you. I think so too. And Mr. Haney, any other conversation?
Well, I
So ingress, egress, size of the building, and parking.
yes and no, but if somebody come in and put a big apartment complex in that place instead,
Well,
could you imagine the traffic in and out?
An apartment complex that we had no control over.
I'm starting to I'm so green to it. I'm trying to see the
Right.
light on both directions.
Right.
Yeah, but he does seem like he has a good plan, a good
He does.
a good direction of what he's trying to do.
Yes.
Well, again, Mayor, independent of this application, do you want to have me prepare something for you all to consider, to amend the LDR?
Boy, he's been kicked back to planning committee so many times, so I guess
It's been to the planning council like 6 times.
the
Yes.
buck stops here.
I mean, it does, no matter what the planning council votes or recommends, it's the city
So,
council has
say
the
he
final say.
doesn't pass the variance test, then what?
Ma'am,
If he doesn't pass the variance test, what?
doesn't
then what?
matter.
Doesn't matter.
Article 4.
Article
allows
4
you
gives you the power to
override
supervise,
that.
yep.
So why are we worrying about that?
I don't know.
Well,
I
I
mean,
respect Mr. Rega's opinion, but I'm not sure that is a legal opinion. It is
I can make it a legal
personal
opinion.
opinion.
Yeah.
So,
But it's like, you know, it's like the square footage. That wasn't a legal opinion. It's just what someone thought. I was,
and
Yeah.
and that's why I'm asking if you want that opinion, not legal opinion, but opinion of what the number of parking spaces should be in any light manufacturing business to be different than what is in the LDR now? And if so, then change it across the board. Don't make a change for a particular circumstance.
Would the parking have to be pervious or impervious? Does that make a big difference in what the design would be?
Well, that's a
We
different
haven't
animal.
got to that yet.
Yeah.
That would, the
That's a
fire
different
protection and all
animal,
that, we
though.
haven't even got close to that yet.
In the LDR, but even before you changed it, for commercial retail business and personal services, it was 4 per 1,000 square feet, or a business and professional office is 4 per 1,000 square feet. So even if you didn't create the light manufacturing category, he probably would have fallen in that 4 per 1,000 square foot.
I was trying to get the planning group to look at other avenues versus 1,000 square feet, you know, the size of the building. At the time, they didn't seem to have an appetite for that, just because it's hard to look at other things. For example, you know, if you were going to do it based on number of employees, how do you stay on top of that? And we certainly didn't want to give the city more you know, work than was needed. However, one thing that did kind of pop up is, I think it's annual, that cities, that any business that has to come before the city, and they have to buy their business permit. Is that right? Is that an annual thing?
Mhm.
Isn't there a line on there that specifically says number of employees in the business? There you go. So at the time, we didn't go down that avenue because I didn't know that information. I researched it later. But at the end of the day, that may be one way to do it, especially if there's a non-retail component. The hitch and the get along here, though, is Mr. Santor is an honest guy, and he said, no, there is going to be a retail component.
They're gonna buy
I'm not
screws.
going to have 30 people driving in. I'm going to have people walking in buying a box of screws.
Correct.
So he's not going to have the kind of volume that you might have if you're a Walmart or
Right.
a Winn-Dixie. So, and again, I mean, we have to think outside the box, and it's not just about what our LDRs say, it's about, what about all that concrete? What about all that impervious space that's
Mhm.
gonna now flood? So those are the kinds of things that we had to go down. And we also even looked at the soil. I don't know if you know it, but that particular parcel of land is on a unique piece of soil. The aggregate there is huge. It's one of the best sand that there is for drainage. So the what they call R and P values, which how fast the water bubbles up when the rain hits, it runs off much faster there than it would anywhere else, like in my yard or your yard.
It's had a lot of
So-
prey in there.
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly right. Yeah. So
It's probably holy water.
this is really going to get off subject, but I got to go there because I heard something about food trucks. The end of 2003, the state gentleman came up, said he was going to have you know, do something regarding a food truck. Just be aware the state uses a supremacy rule to determine that municipalities no longer have the right to determine their own rules for food trucks.
Unless it's
So,
city property, yeah.
Mayor, I heard you mention that,
Yep.
you know, you would see what the county rules are, and you would see what the, you know, the
State.
municipality rules are. Please check the state rules.
Absolutely.
Because they're they allow the food trucks must have a very strong.
Yeah, as you drive across and around Bay County, everybody has food trucks except Parker.
Yes, sir.
And I don't know why.
Yeah.
Why don't they come to Parker? Why don't businesses
Because
come
they
to
won't
Parker?
let 'em. There's-
Because there's rules
No,
changed.
yeah.
But
They won't let 'em.
the one thing that I've heard constantly over the last 3 years from developers is they will not come to Parker because it takes too long to get through the bureaucracy, and a year or 2 years go by to make $100 days, you know. And I just we need to be moving past this. We
Right.
need to be moving on and building buildings and building businesses
Yes, sir.
to help offset the cost of operating a city. Because currently, the SRF was approved in the last 2 or 3 days, and the water supply system is going to go in. And as soon as that goes in, people are going to want to build in Parker. But if it takes you 2 years to build one building, no one's going to come here. They won't take advantage of the SRF. And that's where we're at. We're stuck.
There's some magnificent.
People
food
can't
trucks.
sell their land because there's no one allowed to build here.
Absolutely agree. One other thing I'll just tell you is I heard something about 7 days. I believe that does no longer exist. I think the state prevents you from dictating how many days they can be at a certain spot, as long as they meet all of the other criteria. So it's probably Mr. Sloan, research, but if we have a municipal rule that determines food trucks can only be somewhere 7 days, please check the state. They've used, like I say, their supremacy laws now to overrun whatever municipalities and states or counties do, and we have to abide by those.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. I appreciate all your hard work, Mark. Okay, Ms. Barrow.
Well, what do we do? Does the council, what do we wanna do? Will we make them go all the way to, what's the date, 29th?
February 27th is the
27th.
special meeting, the public hearing for the major
To go to
development
the
process.
Planning Commission. That goes to the planning commission, and then they tell them that they
That's
can
another,
do a
what,
variance.
3 weeks?
Yes, sir, special meeting next week.
Special meeting next week.
27th.
On the 27th.
This could theoretically come back before you at the first meeting of March, which would be,
The planning council's meeting the 27th. What date is that? What day of the week is that?
It's a Tuesday.
At 5
Tuesday.
o'clock, normal time.
Can we have a special council meeting that we can vote on the 28th? With sufficient time to advertise.
So I guess this is questions for Mr. Sloan, because we're doing a public hearing for planning. Must we do the very same kind of public hearing for the council once that occurs? And secondly, if we're doing 3 variances, does Mr. Sloan, or does Mr. Santora have to fill out 3 separate packets and pay 3 separate fees? Or can he just fill out 1 packet with the 3 variances on it?
well,
And I
it
don't
would
know
be
if
a-
that's Mr. Sloan or if that's
yeah,
council.
it's a part of his development permit application, so, it would be part and parcel of that. He
So it
wouldn't
can be
have 3
inclusive of
separate,
that.
he wouldn't
Okay.
have 3 separate
Okay.
applications.
Okay.
It's just his application for development permit includes that he needs 3 variances.
And so he will have to fill out the variance packet, but it's just going to speak to the 3 of those.
It would be helpful for the council, but I
Not
think the council
necessary?
has already heard what the issues are.
Does the council wish for me to have him fill out a variance packet? Of course, you just got here, so.
I think
I
he's
don't-
spent enough. I mean, I think he just
Okay.
Put it before the planning council on the 27th
Yes, sir.
at 17:30 hours.
Okay.
Is that right?
1700.
1700, that's right, you're 30 minutes.
1700, yes.
And how does the council feel, armed with that information that they give us that night, that we meet on the 28th
I don't have a problem with that.
at 0900 hours in the morning? And we will put it to bed one way or another, because Mr. Santoro should not spend another penny and not be able to open or close his business.
y'all really want to deal with me at 9 o'clock in the morning?
No, 7. I know, John, it's bad, I know.
We're here.
On the 28th, what time? 5:30?
5
Talk
o'clock?
AM or PM?
No,
Yeah.
PM.
5 o'clock.
That's fine with me.
Okay.
Why don't we do 5 o'clock?
Okay, 5 o'clock, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's on the
28th. Mr. Chappell, will that be okay?
I got it.
All right.
My calendar looks like a mess now with all the changes, but, yeah, 5 o'clock.
You need a white pen.
And then I think we need to look at, going
So-
back and looking at those LDRs with that and see what we can do about it.
Mr. Sloan can
Just
write
in-
those changes.
Just in case we need a specific number and know where it come from.
I don't think there is one. He made up in his head.
You just made that one up a little while ago. That's
It's
one
just
of-
saying what he did. But it doesn't matter. We can say 8 square feet, but
Well-
you can change it whenever you want.
Well,
Okay.
We need to,
We have
a
some
discussion.
dates.
I think we have someone who might like to speak to it.
And I need to the council.
Okay.
What happens 5 years, 10 years from now when Mr. Santora decides to sell his business and someone comes along and says, I'll buy that business and I'm gonna put in a Bell's clothing store or Old Roses or whatever it's
We would
called.
never be that lucky.
But, all right. Please, we're gonna be really good. We're gonna have the gateway to Tyndall all cleaned up. We're gonna be able to do it.
Business Highway 98 won't be that, ma'am. It's in the plans to be where the cameras are on Highway 98 will be the gateway to Tyndall.
Yeah, but they still gotta come through here. What if that all right, that's out of the box. Do they, and how do they go about, I know he's gotta get rid of all of his equipment and everything, but now all of a sudden, he's got 12 spaces out there for parking. Nothing was brought up in case the building should be sold. Is there something you put in there so you don't go through somebody trying to buy that
That would,
building?
Well, I
that
think
would come back to the council again.
At that
Right,
time,
but I mean, is it gonna take those people?
I think
out
there's
of
more
here?
than 12 parking spaces out there myself.
Well,
I mean, if you look at Oak Shore Drive Apartments, there's 200 parking spots there. And that was all figured, I think, at 1.7 per apartment.
He's got a property across the back there.
And he's got the whole section on the backside of Second Street that he could park in.
Well, I'm just wondering, would.
I
it
can't
be
give you an
easier
answer because it's
in
a
5 years,
supposition.
10 years from now, or, 10 years.
This is a building. You're talking about a development. You're not talking about
LDRs
use.
actually anticipated that. So two things. First of all, if you have what we refer to as a legal non-conforming business, because, you know, you granted variances and they're legal at this point, if at the point of sale, the new owners would have to follow any new regulations that are in place at that time. Remember, we use that as the litmus test for when things changed, okay? And secondarily, if you go from manufacturing to retail, like a Belk's, something like that, the number of parking spaces is by the style of business. It's by whether it's a supermarket or manufacturing or a residence, things of that nature. That's all in the LDRs, all charted, based specifically based on, I think at this time, it's based primarily on, in some instances, number of employees, like medical centers, things of that nature.
It's all square
And
footage.
most other incidences, it's based on square footage of the
Yeah.
building.
It's all square footage, I believe. Shopping centers would be 4 per 1,000 square feet. Again, the businesses and commercial are 4 per 1,000 square feet. So if somebody changed and brought in a Belk's, that's what they'd be facing.
Yeah, so the new owners would have to comply. First of all, they'd have to come before you because that's, you know, it would be a different business, and undoubtedly they're gonna change the structure of the building and make it something different. And secondarily, they would have to comply with whatever the rules are for that style of new business that would be brought in. So we're not stuck by saying it's okay to do this now and then still, you know, have that template for whatever business moves in the future. That's not how it works.
Thank you, sir. So council, the last item, I need for you to pay very close attention to what I'm about to tell you. The news guy is pretty excited about this.
He's more excited than.
1967, the City of Parker Police Department was formed along with the city. And we have grown and accomplished many things along the way. Same as the fire department. It was formed in 1955 before the city. And they have grown and done a lot of different things along the way. We received a letter, the chief did, about 14 days ago. I should tell you that after the hurricane, we were no longer dispatched by the sheriff. We were moved to being dispatched by the city of Springfield. If you're writing notes, please, please, please make sure you get it accurate. Do not report it inaccurately. Do not report it inaccurately. This is a very, very serious. We received a letter stating that on the 8th of March, we would no longer be dispatched by the city of Springfield. That creates an enormous gap in our police department. You know, I was gone last week, and the week before that, I met with the sheriff along with Chief Hutto. It's the chief's responsibility to run the department, but it's my responsibility to make sure that they have the tools to run the department. And the one thing that the police department must have is the ability to receive 911 calls and be dispatched. So in Bay County, and if you do or do not know, to have self-dispatch conservatively would be about $400,000 or more. Not equipment, labor, and manpower. We don't have it. I don't have it. So there are some things we could do in the long run, but there are things that I'm going to do in the short term. I've been to see Sheriff Ford, and he is willing to dispatch reluctantly, but he is willing to help out the city of Parker and dispatch our police calls from the sheriff's office. You think, well, that's a lot of money, but it's not, and it is. It's a lot of money. It's $100,000. $100,000. Please get it accurate. Please don't report it inaccurately. I'm going to not fill 2 vacancies in employment. I'm not going to fill 2 slots that are open, and I'm going to redivert that money to pay the sheriff to dispatch the Parker Police, hopefully by the 9th of March or midnight on the 8th. I have not. Today I thought we were signing the contract and having a sit down, but that didn't happen. This is very, very delicate negotiations. Please report it accurately. Please make sure what you write is correct, because you could, inaccurately reporting this, cause us to no longer have a dispatched police department. A city must have fire, police, public works, and administration. If you don't have them, we just don't become Parker anymore. And that's where we're at. So if you're going to report it, please, please report it accurately. It's not up for debate, council. I'm giving you an in-briefing on the first time. When I have a solution, I'll give you an exit briefing. I exit briefed Mr. Sloan today. He's fully aware of the circumstances. He'll review the contract between the Bay County Sheriff's Department and City of Parker. And hopefully, how many days is it till the 8th? What is it, about 14 days, 2 weeks to go? About 2 weeks. Yeah. Hopefully in the next 2 weeks, representatives from the Parker Police Department and I, along with Mr. Sloan, will review the contract, and we will sign a contract with Bay County. If you don't know, Sheriff Ford is an outstanding police officer. And in our conversation, he made one advice. He gave me some little bit of advice, and I know it to be true in my research in the last 8 days, really, not 14, because I was gone for 6. He said, your city's growing. You're going to build new buildings. You're going to see new homes being built. We had a guy come in today. He's going to build 50 homes in the next 4 years. As these homes are built, there's going to be more people moved to Parker. Could be we have subsidized housing in Parker right where the middle place is, depending on how that works out. We will not have enough police officers to stay the way we are. I'll need to add some more to the tax to be able to buy the police, to be able to police the city for the future. So we're hoping to not do that right now. I'm hoping to be able to do it with 2 of the unfilled positions and use the money to reroute. But the sheriff feels, and I agree with him completely, this has been a lot of work in the last 10 days. I agree with him completely that the city of Parker will experience a growth spurt when the Air Force Base is up and running. Don't believe it ain't going to happen, because it is. Parker will grow along with the rest of Bay County. It may not be as big, but you're going to see a complete fulfillment of all of the vacant land and some of the unvacant land on Tyndall Parkway. We have secured the SRF loan for $7 million. We are starting to put the water lines in the ground now. That's so that everybody that doesn't have water will have water. It's going to happen. So, Council, that's one I needed to bring you up to speed on that. I haven't had an opportunity because I can't talk to you. Do you have anything you'd like to ask me before I move on? Because I'll have to route it through the clerk to you.
100,000 is per year, right?
Per year.
Yeah.
And this won't be a full year this year.
Right. Is that 100,000 just for the?
It's from October the 1st to October the 1st. That's when it'll probably be paid in quarterly, like we do the 911 money, the active for the 800 megahertz. It's paid quarterly. And anybody have any conversation or questions they'd like to ask me?
Where was these 50 homes gonna be built? Here in Parker?
Yes, ma'am.
Where at?
All over where there's vacancies.
Yeah.
I can show you the
If they
blueprints.
can get them built.
Well,
You know, they got.
if they don't get told no, but we have seen the blueprints, and that's 50 more homes with tax, 50 more waters, 50 more sewers, just in those. You know, this guy that's got the metal building, don't think about what we can get in water. Think about what we can get in ad valorem. Just saying.
Okay, and this will be until October, so we need to be discussing what plan we can make to take care of this after this time. After
So
October.
mid-year will be in June. We need to make our October budget 24 and 25 in the mid-year adjustment in June. As it stands right now, if nothing changes, we have sufficient revenue to pay the sheriff. We have no choice, and he is right. We do need to be thinking about our own dispatch. My instinct tells me that ought to be secondary. Primary ought to be just getting a dispatch system set up first. We're about to start to experience hurricane season. We need to have dispatch for at least the police. And then as soon as that's done, then we'll move on to the next step. And if you think that we shouldn't, then we have to think of something else. But personally, I think you should have fire, police, public works, and admin to have a city. I love our little town. I think it's a great city. I think that all of you wouldn't come here and listen to what we all have to ramble on about. So I'm just letting you know where we're at and what we're going to do. Anything, gentlemen? I've told you everything that I know.
Well, it won't be 100,000 this year anyway.
Well, we
It's
were
gonna be
hoping,
broke
Ron,
down
for
to-
50, and you'd cover the rest.
Yeah.
No, it won't be 50 for the year. We're in February. So let's say March, April, May, June, July, August, September. You got 7 months. So
A full year is more than 100,000.
Yeah, full year is 100,000.
Over 100,000.
No, a full 12 months is 100,000.
Okay, so we won't be spending.
So if you take 100,000 and divide it by 12 and take 7/10 of that, that's what we'll pay this year.
But in this time, the actual October to October, though.
It'll be the remaining time of this fiscal year, and then the next fiscal year, which would be October the 1st on, we would have had put 100,000 for dispatch for the Parker Police in the Sheriff's Office. And I don't know because I haven't discussed it with Mr. Sloan, but there will be probably, they must have attorneys, we have attorneys, they'll work out the details and provide us with a contract.
But in the meantime, we need to be figuring out what we're gonna do.
And it's done. I've already worked it out with him.
With that, but I'm talking about after, what we need to do.
Well, we could get volunteer dispatchers, people that want to volunteer and stay at the police department and dispatch for us, and we won't have to pay them.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a good
I
idea.
don't think that's going to happen. So, all right. Yes, ma'am.
Who does the fire department for dispatching in 911? Where does that go?
What do you mean, where does it go?
Fire department.
When you dial 911 and say, it goes to the sheriff,
And then
and the dispatcher says fire, police, EMS, and you tell them, and then they route it to the EOC. It's literally this quick, and it's done. And it goes to the EOC, and the 911 coordinators up there ask you what your emergency is, and you tell them, and they push out the appropriate city. And the way that's paid, through the 911 system to the county is it's the revenue from the use of your cell phone and your home phone. And that goes down annually, because most people don't have home phones anymore.
I do.
Yeah, I do too. So, if you have any questions you want to ask me, feel free to ask me. But I'm not going to give you a whole big resolution on this, because I'm not going to do it.
3 minutes.
Pat Fosick, 1344 Stratford. Just a question, you said that there were 2 positions that you weren't going to hire or fill
Right.
in order to fund this for this rest of the fiscal year.
Yes,
What
ma'am.
2 positions?
Not discussing it.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Good answer.
Anybody?
Oh,
Thank you.
Oh, no, we're not.
Too late,
It's too late now.
ask us what we
Oh,
needed to talk
man,
about.
I was wanna talk about the code enforcement issues.
too late.
It's too late. On the 28th, you could tell me about code enforcement. I'm sorry. Appreciate you guys.